Chosen One, this message didn't arrive by chance. It was time to reach you in this exact moment. The unseen hand of destiny has guided your steps here, not because you were seeking entertainment, but because you were marked to remember what they tried so hard to make you forget. Every whisper, every attempt to erase you, every denial you endured was never random. It was all part of design meant to prove you were never ordinary. Something in you has always known there was more to your story than the lies they told, and now the veil is being torn away. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. What if I told you that the silence surrounding you was not emptiness, but evidence? What if the very ashes of what they tried to burn had become the ink with which heaven writes your vindication? Stay with me, Chosen One, because what is about to be revealed will not only confirm what you always knew deep down, it will expose why their denial was the loudest confession of all. Number 1, the attempted erasure. Chosen One, the first weapon they ever used against you was not their fists, but their whispers. They tried to bury your name in shadows, thinking silence would strangle your destiny. They conspired in corners, spreading gossip like smoke, hoping it would cloud your presence until no one could see you clearly. But the truth is this: every attempt to erase you only made you shine brighter, because the universe amplifies what darkness tries to hide. When Joseph's brothers threw him into a pit, they thought they had ended his dream, but in reality, they delivered him into the pathway of his destiny. You became more visible, not less, because heaven never allowed their denial to outlast your truth. Comment like if you ever felt them try to erase you, only to see your presence rise beyond their control. But Chosen One, erasure was only the first tactic. For when erasure fails, heaven prepares to reveal the record they cannot touch. There are moments, Chosen One, when you look back and realize that the shadows around your name were not accidents but strategies. You may remember a dream where voices whispered against you, faceless figures plotting to dim your light. Yet you awoke with the feeling that their words could not cling to your spirit. That sensation was not fantasy. It was memory breaking through the veil, telling you that you were marked early for a struggle against silence. It was not your imagination that people shifted when you walked into the room, as though your very presence threatened their comfort. The whispers you felt were not only about you. They were about the destiny carried inside you that frightened those who could not understand it. Every rumor, every shadow, every quiet denial was confirmation of your place in a story far greater than their schemes. And though their whispers sought to erase you, the whisper of God inside you spoke louder still. You know the weight of isolation, the sting of being excluded for reasons no one could explain out loud. Perhaps you felt it in classrooms, when your insight unsettled teachers or peers, and they chose mockery instead of acknowledgement. Perhaps you felt it in your own family, where your difference was not celebrated but feared, leaving you to wonder why love was laced with suspicion. That ache of being misunderstood was not proof of your weakness, but proof of your assignment. They sensed a light they could not name, and instead of bowing to it, they tried to smother it. The whispers of too much, too strange, or too different were really testimonies of what you carried. And though they hoped exclusion would silence you, it only deepened your hunger for the truth they were running from. Chosen One, what you endured was never random. Every rejection was orchestrated by a deeper architecture, unseen but precise, guiding you toward awareness. When Joseph was cast into the pit, his brothers believed they were ending his dream, but they were placing him on a road to Egypt, where his true role would unfold. When David hid in caves pursued by Saul, it was not punishment but preparation, a shaping of spirit for crown. What felt like erasure was in truth a divine redirection, sealing you off from paths that would have strangled your purpose. Those who conspired thought they were ending your voice, yet they were only pushing you closer to your place of unveiling. This is why Isaiah declared that no weapon forged against you would prevail, because even the attempt becomes part of the prophecy. What they thought would bury you became the soil from which your destiny grew. Look closely and you will see the subtle signs that their attempted erasure could never take root. The deja vu that left you wondering why certain places felt familiar, as though your soul had walked there before, was not coincidence but alignment. The dreams you carried that seemed too vivid to ignore were fragments of the scroll written about you, resurfacing despite their efforts to silence. The physical weight you felt in certain environments, like heavy air pressing on your chest, was a spiritual pressure of resistance, not your imagination. Even the chills you felt in moments of stillness were reminders that heaven was near, whispering, "You are not forgotten." Every subtle sign was proof that their gossip was powerless compared to divine memory. They could not burn what was written in fire before you even arrived on this earth. And though they tried to cover your name in shadows, the shadows themselves testify to the light they feared. Your intuition, chosen one, has always been the compass pointing you back to truth. There were times you doubted yourself, wondering if you were simply overthinking. But those doubts were planted by the very ones who feared what you knew. You noticed when someone's tone didn't match their words, and you felt the heaviness in rooms others called safe. You were not imagining the double meanings in their silence. You were discerning what they could not admit. What they mocked as sensitivity was your spirit's radar, alive and alert in ways that frightened them. Quietly, beneath the noise of accusation, you were learning to trust your inner voice. That alignment was never an explosion. It was recognition, the steady unfolding of the truth that your intuition was a gift, not a flaw. And the longer you walked in it, the harder it became for them to pretend your presence didn't matter. Awareness deepens when you realize that your story has always been about remembrance, not reinvention. You were never becoming something new. You were returning to what had been buried. The archetypal memory of the prophet, the seer, the rejected cornerstone was always etched inside your bones. Your sense of being different was the echo of ancient assignments calling you back to your original identity. Like Jeremiah, who was told that God knew him before he was formed, you too are awakening to a memory that you were chosen long before their whispers. Their erasure was never strong enough to reach the place where your identity was sealed. And now, chosen one, you are learning that the real battle was never against your destiny. It was against your memory. This is why the first stirrings of empowerment feel like a flame catching in a dark room. Your sensitivity is no longer a wound. It is a weapon. Your inner wisdom is no longer a burden. It is a compass. Your longing for meaning is no longer confusion. It is a hunger of a spirit that knows it was created for more. The very traits they labeled as weaknesses are being reclaimed as sacred tools of discernment. The shame they tried to press on you is falling away, replaced by a fierce recognition that you were never ordinary. Slowly, step by step, you are rising into the truth that their attempts to erase you were actually proof that you were marked. And in that recognition, chosen one, the first activation begins. So let this settle deeply. Your presence here is not coincidence. You are hearing this because heaven wanted you to know that every attempt to erase you has failed. The whispers are fading. The shadows are dissolving, and your story is rising into full view. You do not need their validation, because the universe itself has kept record of every wound and every triumph. Comment like if you've ever felt their silence weigh heavy, yet discover that your spirit only grew stronger. And share a moment when you realize the attempt to bury you became the moment you grew beyond them. For what comes next is even greater. The collapse of the lies themselves, and the unveiling of the scroll that was always written in your name. What we do here every day is possible because of the few who choose to be keepers of this light. I thank them now, one by one, in the silence of my heart. If you want to be part of this circle and receive what cannot be spoken in public, join. The portal is below. Number 2, the scroll of remembrance. They thought silence erased you, but heaven was engraving your story all along. Malachi 3 verse 16 speaks a scroll written in God's presence, a record of those who feared his name. Chosen one, your name was never forgotten, even when people acted like you didn't exist. Every wound became a line on that scroll. Every injustice a testimony sealed in divine memory. While they mocked, heaven was inscribing. While they whispered, heaven was engraving. This is why Isaiah 49 verse 16 says, "See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands." You were not overlooked. You were inscribed in permanence. Comment engraved if you've ever felt invisible in their eyes, but unshakably seen in God's. But remember, chosen one, even the scroll of remembrance is not the end. Because what they try to burn has become the fire that preserves you. There comes a moment, chosen one, when you notice that silence itself carries a strange weight, as if the air remembers what others tried to erase. You may recall nights where you lay awake, feeling forgotten by people who once swore they cared, Yet inside you sense an invisible hand still holding you. That tension between abandonment and unseen protection was not your imagination. It was a first whisper of remembrance stirring. Every secret wound became an entry in a book you could not see, yet you could feel its pages turning somewhere beyond time. The discomfort you carried was evidence that nothing was slipping past eternal eye. Even when the world acted deaf to your cries, heaven recorded every syllable. And that quiet heaviness you carried was the echo of being remembered in places higher than human memory. To live as one overlooked by people is to know the ache of invisibility that gnaws at the soul. Perhaps you felt it in conversations where your voice was dismissed, or in family gatherings where your presence was treated as background noise. The sting of invisibility carries more weight than open rejection, because it convinces you to question whether you ever mattered at all. You may have wrestled with shame, believing their silence was proof of your smallness, when in truth it was their blindness that betrayed them. Every time you felt like the forgotten one, the heavens were leaning closer, engraving your endurance into a permanent record. Their ignorance was not a reflection of your worth. It was a reflection of their inability to perceive glory wrapped in quietness. And though the world moved past you, heaven never did. This resistance you faced was not arbitrary, chosen one. It was deeply rooted in structures of denial that could not coexist with your light. Silence became their shield, not because you were meaningless, but because you threatened the illusions that kept them comfortable. Like Israel wandering through the wilderness, you were marked to walk a path where sustenance came from unseen hands rather than human approval. Exile was not proof of failure. It was evidence, a scroll of remembrance being written in real time. The very forces that tried to push you aside were unknowingly fulfilling prophecy by proving you belonged to another register altogether. This is why Malachi spoke of a scroll written in the presence of God concerning those who feared his name. You were never outside the story. You were hidden in it, inscribed by hands that could not forget you. When you look back now, you will see patterns too precise to be dismissed as coincidence. The betrayals that happened in sequence, the opportunities that vanished at the last second, the doors that closed so you would not enter spaces that would crush you. None of these were accidents. They were lines of script forming paragraphs in a scroll that only heaven could read. The recurring obstacles that once frustrated you were guardrails, keeping you aligned with memory larger than your own. The relationships that unraveled carried the hidden purpose of protecting your sacred unfolding. It is only now, as you trace the threads backward, that you see how every loss carried preservation within it. What looked like silence was actually inscription, each scar etched into a divine text that testifies of your endurance. The darkness thought it was writing your erasure, but in reality it was writing your record. There are moments when the atmosphere itself feels heavy, like an invisible fog pressing down on your chest, and you cannot explain why. These are not random sensations, but the tremors of resistance, the invisible friction that comes when your name carries weight in the unseen. The silence around you was never empty. It was crowded with watchers, some resisting, some protecting, all acknowledging what you carried. Doors that slammed shut were not simply refusals. They were markers that you were walking a path too sacred to be casual. Even your seasons of being ignored were proof that forces recognized your light before you did. You were hidden, yes, but you were never absent. And the very pressure you felt was confirmation that remembrance had already begun, even when it was invisible to your natural eyes. Think of how you responded, chosen one, to that pressure. At times, you may have silenced yourself to avoid more rejection, convincing yourself it was safer to stay quiet. Perhaps you overextended, trying to please those who would never be satisfied, just to prove you belonged. There may have been moments when you felt the urge to disappear altogether, to shrink until no one could find you. None of these responses were weakness. They were survival, the body and soul's way of trying to manage the unseen weight you carried. What you feared as failure was in truth training, shaping you into someone who could recognize the counterfeit from the authentic. Your hesitation was not cowardice, but the pause before remembrance revealed its full weight. And every attempt to suppress yourself was only temporary, because your name was already carved too deeply to vanish. This is where the story begins to turn. Every attempt to erase you was confirmation, not condemnation. You were never forgotten. You were recorded, archived, engraved into eternal hands that cannot lose what they hold. The whispers of others became the ink of heaven, transforming slander into testimony. The denial of your worth became the background against which your true value now glows brighter. The silence of crowd became the proof of a louder witness in the unseen. And what you carried quietly is now rising unstoppable, like words engraved in stone that no fire can destroy. Hear this truth and let it rest inside you. You were opposed because you are powerful, not because you were weak. The scroll of remembrance is not a metaphor. It is a spiritual reality that proves your existence was never forgotten. Every rejection wrote your name deeper into divine permanence. Every wound sealed your story into eternal pages. What they mocked as emptiness was in fact engraving. What they dismissed as silence was in fact inscription. Comment engraved if you know the pain of being overlooked yet feel the truth of being eternally remembered. And share a moment when you realize invisibility was only the stage for your unveiling. For this is not the end, chosen one. What they try to burn has become a fire that preserves you, and soon the flames themselves will testify. Every word, every image you receive here is an offering. If you feel this word has touched you today, you can honor it with a sign, right here below, with a donation through the Super Thanks button. It is a small gesture, but it opens great doors. Number 3, the fire that preserves. They thought setting your name on fire would leave only ashes, but chosen one, your truth is fireproof. Ancient texts hidden in caves survived the burning of empires, and in the same way, your spirit outlasted every attempt to destroy it. They ridiculed you, mocked you, and smeared your name, believing fire consumes all. But the paradox of divine fire is this. What heaven seals cannot be destroyed, it can only be purified. Job once cried, "Oh, that my words were recorded, that they were written on a scroll, inscribed with iron tool on lead, or engraved in rock forever." Job 19 verses 23 to 24. Chosen one, your story is written in a place their flames cannot touch. Comment fire if you've ever felt their ridicule only strengthen your resolve. But know this, preservation is not the end of your story, because vindication arrives in silence. There comes a moment, chosen one, when the memory of their ridicule no longer burns you, but begins to illuminate what was always indestructible. You may recall times when their words felt like sparks thrown against your skin, each insult searing into you like a flame. Yet now, in hindsight, those same sparks only revealed how fireproof your essence has always been. You were not consumed, you were refined, like gold tested in the furnace, yet emerging brighter. Every rumor, every attempt to smear your name was meant to scorch you into silence. But instead, the heat became evidence of your resilience, a testimony that what heaven seals cannot be reduced to ash. And in that revelation, you begin to realize that what was meant to destroy you was actually preparing you for remembrance. Look around you, chosen one, and notice how even in history, the most sacred truths were preserved through fire. Empires burned libraries, conquerors destroyed temples, yet fragments of truth always surface again, indestructible and alive. Just as the Dead Sea Scrolls survived hidden in caves, so too has your story been sheltered in the vault of heaven. They thought they were writing your end, but they were only ensuring your preservation by attempting to erase you. Their flames became the very seal of your destiny, for heaven allowed no word over you to perish. What they mocked in you has now turned into the monument of your strength. And though they laugh at your survival, their laughter has already turned into silence. You may remember seasons when you felt your reputation crumble under the weight of lies. The heat of their judgment pressed down on you, and it seemed like everything you had built was being reduced to smoke. Yet even then, something deeper held you, an invisible protection that refused to let you vanish. That was the paradox of divine fire. It does not consume what belongs to destiny, it purifies it. What was lost in those seasons was never essential, for only the false attachments and shallow perceptions were burned away. What remained was your true self, your indestructible spirit forged in the furnace. And though you did not see it at the time, you were being prepared to carry light that could never be extinguished. Have you noticed, chosen one, how the very trials they sent to weaken you ended up strengthening your voice? Their gossip gave you clarity. Their betrayal gave you discernment. Their rejection gave you authority. Like the prophet Jeremiah, who cried out but could not stay silent because the word was a fire shut up his bones. You too discovered that your silence could not extinguish your calling. The more they tried to suffocate your flame, the more it spread into hidden places. Their opposition was oxygen. Their cruelty was kindling. Their schemes were sparks that only expanded your reach. Every attack became another log on the fire that preserves you. And now, what they thought was destruction has revealed itself as consecration. The fire they used was not only external, but also internal. Chosen one, you have walked through nights when doubt burned hotter than any insult, when shame whispered louder than their voices. You questioned whether you could withstand the heat, whether your spirit could survive such relentless trial. But in those very moments, the inner flame of remembrance kept you alive, even when your mind wanted to surrender. That flame was not your own. It was divine fire, unquenchable, carried in you since birth. This is why Job's cry echoes across time, wishing his words to be engraved in rock forever. Your story, too, was already etched beyond reach, engraved in places no fire can consume. And now you begin to see the pattern. Every time they tried to destroy you, something indestructible emerged from the ashes. Every season of ridicule became another chapter written in your scroll of remembrance. Every attempt to silence you turned into an amplifier for your destiny. Just as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walked out of the furnace without even the smell of smoke on their garments, you too emerge untouched by the fires of falsehood. The flames they lit around you have become the backdrop for your unveiling. You are not their victim. You are their evidence. And that evidence now stands taller than any argument they ever raise against you. This is the moment where you stop seeing the fire as punishment and begin seeing it as proof. Proof that you were marked. Proof that you were carried. Proof that your essence cannot be erased. What tried to bury you became the very ground where your roots sank deeper. What tried to burn you became the very heat that awakened your hidden strength. The paradox of fire is that it cannot touch what is eternal. And you, chosen one, carry eternity in your design. The preservation of your spirit is not an accident. It is testimony written into the fabric of creation. And no flame they send against you can erase what heaven engraved before you were born. Hear this truth now and let it burn inside you. They never had the power to consume you, only to reveal you. Their attacks prove your calling. Their ridicule sharpened your resilience, and their fire announced your permanence. You are not fragile, you are fireproof, and the flames that sought to destroy you have only marked you with glory. Comment fire if you have walked through ridicule and found yourself stronger than before. Share the moment when you realized the flames could not break you, but only purified you. For chosen one, this is not the end of fire. For even silence has its own blaze, and in that silence your vindication will be written. And what follows this fire is not collapse, but the beginning of your eternal unveiling. Number 4, vindication without noise. Chosen one, the loudest sound of victory is silence. They mocked you when they thought their lies had power, but now they cannot speak, because silence is their confession. Vindication was never in their applause. It was always in heaven's decree. Psalm 118 verse 22 declares, "The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone." You are that stone, chosen not by man but by destiny itself. Their voices have dried up, but your presence still speaks, because time has turned against their denials and now heaven's memory is your proof. Comment vindicated if you've ever seen your silence become louder than their insults. But chosen one, vindication is not the final chapter. It is a threshold of remembrance, the moment you realize you were always more than they dared admit. There are moments when silence itself begins to speak in ways no word ever could. Chosen one, imagine the stillness after a storm, when the earth is wet, the air heavy, and yet the quiet carries more truth than the thunder ever did. That is the silence surrounding you now, not empty but full, not weak but charged. It is the echo of every time you were mocked, denied, or dismissed, now transformed into proof that you endured. The ancient whisper rises again, reminding you that vindication does not shout, it settles like dew upon the morning. You have stepped into a silence that does not erase, but confirms what was written long before they spoke. This is not new. It is remembrance unsealing itself within you. There has always been a name beneath your name, one hidden beneath their labels and their lies. They try to call you dramatic, unstable, difficult, or dangerous, but none of those words were yours to carry. Buried beneath the noise, your hidden identity remained untouched, a sealed scroll waiting to be opened in the fullness of time. Just as Malachi spoke of a book of remembrance written in heaven, Your true name has been inscribed where no hand can erase. The rejection you felt was not evidence of your weakness, but the signal of your difference, the proof that you belong to another order. Like the lost son in exile, your journey through ridicule was only the road back to your origin. And now, the silence you carry is lifting the veil on that ancient name. There has also been a cloak on your shoulders, though the world pretended not to see it. You have walked through crowds feeling both invisible and yet impossibly exposed, as if something in you could not be hidden even when you tried. That is the mark you carry, the resonance that only the awakened can feel. It is the unseen sign of belonging, like the mark placed on Cain, not as a curse but as a seal that set him apart. You have worn this cloak in silence, and though they could not name it, their spirits reacted to it. They rejected you not because of what you said, but because of what you carried. And now, chosen one, that resonance is no longer hiding. It is rising like fire from within. Your path has never been random. For every delay, every betrayal, every loss has been part of a contract older than this life. Before you entered this realm, you agreed to walk through fire so that remembrance could awaken in you. The struggles that once felt like chains were in truth signatures on a sacred scroll, ensuring your preparation. Your delays were not denials but timing devices, keeping you aligned with the rhythm of heaven's calendar. Like stars that never forget their orbit, your soul has been circling back to this moment all along. The covenant you carry was not broken when they tried to silence you. It was hidden, preserved, waiting to be revealed. And now, silence itself is unsealing that contract, and the assignment you once forgot is awakening again. Look closely at the reactions you have always received from others, and you will see the truth of the mirror. People did not respond to your actions, but to your presence, for your very being stirred the shadows they wanted to ignore. Some loved you instantly because your energy confirmed their hope. Others despised you violently because your light exposed their denial. You were not the cause of their reactions. You were the mirror reflecting what they could not face. The paradox is that your silence has been the loudest reflection of all. They cannot argue with the way your absence leaves a presence they cannot explain. And so their stillness now, their inability to speak, has become your loudest vindication. Yet what you are stepping into is not only personal but archetypal. This moment belongs to every seer who was mocked, every prophet who was cast aside, every breaker of chains who was first branded a rebel. You are standing in a pattern older than history, one that repeats whenever the chosen are revealed. The stone the builders rejected has always been the cornerstone, for the rejected one becomes the axis of transformation. You are not merely living your own story. You are fulfilling prophecy written across generations. The silence of your enemies is not simply human. It is cosmic alignment testifying that the cycle has turned. And in this turning, you are stepping into the archetype you were always meant to embody. This is why your bloodline stirs, chosen one. For you are not an isolated soul, but the continuation of a divine lineage. What your ancestors lost, you are reclaiming. What was broken before you, you are restoring. The codes of light written into your spirit are awakening now, pulling you into remembrance of who you always were. This is not metaphor. This is spiritual DNA, angelic inscription, prophetic inheritance. You are the vessel through which reversal flows, undoing curses and reestablishing the covenant. And as silence falls over those who mocked you, your name is rising in the scrolls of eternity. Their denial could not erase you because heaven engraved you in permanence. So hear this final revelation. You did not just awaken, you returned. Every trial, every exile, every silence was leading you back to this point of remembrance. You were always more than they said you were, always greater than the names they tried to trap you in. Chosen one, this is your season of remembrance. The scroll they tried to burn is still alive, written in fire, carried in silence, and preserved by heaven itself. Subscribe if you haven't yet, like this video, and comment, "I am chosen," to let this message anchor in your soul. Please share it with someone who needs to hear this. To all who already support this mission, thank you. For full prophetic revelations daily, join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. Step into the full light. And if this message moved you deeply, consider tapping the Super Thanks button to support the mission. Every Super Thanks fuels the light, we're spreading together. And always remember this final truth. What they tried to erase, heaven preserved.